Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next generation of gaming. This is Hectic. Hello. I hope you enjoy your stay as always. Today, I'm going to be talking about my midnight launch experience, and if we have some time, I'm going to be talking about some of the pros and cons of the Xbox. Anyway, and by the way, I start talking about Mongolians throughout the story as well, so be prepared for Mongol action. So, I had the whole game plan set out, right? I called maybe 25. I didn't pre-order my Xbox, so I had maybe 25 Walmarts on call. I called all the GameStops around my area. I called everywhere. I made maybe like 50 phone calls. And I had everything mapped out. I Google mapped it. So what I did was I looked at the Walmarts and the GameStops that aren't in like really residential areas. So like when you go to Google Maps, you can tell if it's a big residential area, if there's all these like neighborhoods and all these lines across. But if it's like if there's nothing, if it's just plain on the map, then no one is there. So I went to and I couldn't find one, but I found a Best Buy that was in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, okay, this might work. If the midnight release didn't pan out for me, I was going to go to Toys R Us at 5 a.m. the next morning, get in line. No one was going to be there because who the fuck goes to Toys R Us for an Xbox? And I was going to make sure I secured my place in line. They open up at 6, or they open up at 8, but you get like a ticket, and then you can just go back to sleep, go home, go back to sleep, and then come back. And then if that didn't work, I was going to go to Target, which was opened up an hour later. And then if that didn't work, I was going to go to a Microsoft store. I had everything on lock. I had this game planned like, 4 days in advance. I was ready for this Xbox. So, anyway, I end up going to Best Buy on a whim, this Best Buy that I was talking about earlier. I go to Best Buy at, I think I get there at 8:30 p.m. I show up in shorts, slippers, and I had an umbrella because it started to rain. And I had like, I had my iPhone. I was listening to like this. I downloaded a 5-hour long podcast just so I could, push through it. I don't know why I decided to wait for 5 hours, but I did. I got in line, didn't have a pre-order. It started raining. I think it got to like 45 degrees. I was freezing. And I put out a tweet. I was like, it really makes you start to reconsider your life when you're sitting in the rain, in the cold, for an Xbox1. So, I'm sitting there, and I'm next to a guy who claims that he owned like 4 or 5 oil rigs, and he did all this distribution stuff, and it was a little nutty, and his wife worked for like this big pharmaceutical company, and blah 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 blah, and it was fun. It was fun, weird conversation that I had with this guy about how he's been to Serbia and all these crazy places, but he might have been telling the truth. He might not have been. It seemed like he was a pretty down-to-earth, knowledgeable guy. He liked to talk a lot, but it was fun regardless. And I'm standing there, and by the way, slippers are not good standing shoes. Your feet start to hurt very quickly. And I didn't bring a chair. I didn't sit down. I was literally standing up for about 6 hours because I didn't get my Xbox One till about 1:30 or 2 a.m., something like that, because all of Best Buy's registers actually shut down, like they crashed, and only one register was working. So there was this line of hundreds of people. I think I was 25th in line, and I got an Xbox One, thank God. But it was nutty. It was really nutty that I had to wait that long to get an Xbox One. By the time I got there, by the time I got to the register, I was like, I don't even know if this was worth it. But in the end, I got it. I'm happy I did. Also, I was listening to this podcast about the Mongolians, right? And this is super interesting, right? I'm a weird dude, but I like to learn about stuff. I typically hate history. I kind of got the allure of learning about the past kind of beaten out of me by history class. That whole monotonous, all right, this is what happened in 1945 and 1912, 17, whatever. And so, memorizing dates, just, chugging out information. It's just stupid stuff. Like, why do I have to learn the date of this particular event when I have that? I can Google that shit. I have an iPhone. Let's talk about the ideas. Let's talk about the actions. Let's talk about something interesting. Like, put a little bias into it. You know what I'm saying? And there's this dude named Dan Carlin, and he has this podcast called Hardcore History, and he makes this shit really fascinating. And it got me through the wait. If I didn't have this podcast, there's no way I would even stayed there. But let me tell you about some of the stuff that I learned while I was waiting in line. All right, so the Mongolians killed about 50 million people when Genghis Khan ruled. Very short time span. He dominated Russia. He dominated, I think I was Iran. He went all over the place. He pushed really hard into many empires, and he dominated everyone. His culture was the first to invent horseback riding and bow and arrows. Now, here's the crazy part, right? I'm not going to start just giving you, well, in the 1200s, this is... No. Listen. All right, so I think he had to cross the Gobi Desert. All right, this fucker had to cross the Gobi Desert because supposedly one of his enemies was across this desert, and the enemy was like, "Ha ha! You cannot cross this desert. It is uncrossable." So this dude was like, "Yeah, you want to bet?" And he starts going across the desert with his army of horseback riders and archers. And by the way, Genghis Khan was a brilliant military tactician. Most people have said that he's probably one of the most, if not the most brilliant military tactician that has ever lived. And what he would do in order to cross this desert is his men would actually cut slits in the horse's neck. Wouldn't kill the horses, but they would drain some of the blood so they could drink the blood of their horses in order to cross the desert. That is how crazy these guys got. When they ran out of water, I think they had a little bit of leftover water or milk, and they would mix it with the blood so, they could actually digest it. But that's how fucking crazy these guys are. They drank their own horse's blood so they could get across a desert to go fuck some people up. You think we got gangsters today? How many people do you know that are willing to drink an animal's blood just to go fuck some dude up? Here's another example. So, he actually went up against his empire called the Jin Empire. They had like millions of people. It was one of the biggest empires to date back in those times. He killed about 1 million people, and not all. He didn't kill all of them. I'm sure he sold some of them into slavery and whatnot. And this dude was an awful dude. I'm not like admiring the guy. I guess I'm admiring his. Not even admiring him. I'm astounded. I'm astounded by the brutality that he possessed. And we're only a few, like maybe only like not that far ahead of this dude. We have the same genes that Genghis Khan has. Interestingly, we supposedly he has the biggest influence on our genetics more than any other person. Like, I think 1 out of every 3 people have Genghis Khan DNA because he just fucked so many women. So chances are, if you're listening to this video, chances are one of you guys has Genghis Khan DNA in you because he, just raped one of your ancestors from the 1200s. Anyway, he took the Jin Empire and he killed 1 million people, and he actually stacked 1 million people on top of each other. 1 million people once they were all dead. And the interesting part was that all of the rotting, decaying flesh actually sank into the dirt, and it mixed, and it became mud. So you have this decaying, rotting flesh mixed in with mud, or mixed in with dirt, becomes mud. And there was, I think, the Shah had this empire, and he was trying to see what was up with the Mongols, and he was trying to get past these 1 million dead bodies that were all stacked on top of each other. Supposedly it looked like a mountain. And they couldn't cross because the odor was so bad and the stench was so just disgusting, and the decay was so bad, it was actually killing the men. There was so much decay, it was killing people that were trying to pass. Anyway, those are some of the fun facts I learned, guys. I'm going to be talking about the Xbox One features, what I like, what I don't like in the next video. I'm going to be uploading all sorts of crazy videos. I hope you enjoyed this gameplay. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.